I believe this is the first time anyone has tried to react to this song. I don't see anyone else. Probably for obvious reasons. It's a very dark subject that people would rather not think about. 6 million people killed. And it wasn't just Jews, as we know. It was Jews, it was homosexuals. It was probably anybody who didn't go along with the Nazi narrative could end up killed in some manner. Holding in the way, that's what I heard them say. They used to heed the words he said, but that was yesterday. Gold will turn to gray, and youth will fade away. They'll never care about you, call you holding in the way. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of Old Men in Chairs. I guess you can tell from the screen that I'm going to delve back into that most difficult of albums, Trout Mask Replica. You know, I was looking at my previous effort that I labeled Beefheart 101. It was actually published 1 year ago yesterday, and at this point has 700 views, which is probably more than I would have expected. So I must have done something right. I'm going to do another song from this album called Dachau Blues. This is probably the darkest song that I can think of in the history of modern music. The subject matter is extremely dark, and the song is extremely dark. Even though perhaps it's done in a half lighthearted manner, the subject matter is anything but. But it seems especially appropriate in our current environment to go back and remember what happened in the Second World War with the death of approximately 6 million Jews in Europe at the hands of the Nazis and their concentration camps. That seems to be something that, has faded from memory because it's now almost 75 years since the camps were uncovered. Those of us who grew up at an earlier age, this album came out in 1969. That was only 25 years after the Second World War. So it was more of a living memory at that point. Kind of disturbing when I read yesterday that surveys are showing that younger people, 20-somethings probably, 20% of them say they don't think the Holocaust ever even happened. That's a scary number. But it shows you the success that a certain kind of propaganda has been having. So for this reaction, because of the difficulty that some people have assimilating the whole Beefheart message in one piece, I'm going to do what I did on the previous Trout Mask song, courtesy of Ant-Man B. I'm going to give you the vocal track first, and I put the song through my caption generating process, so you'll be able to read the captions on the screen as we listen to just the vocal of the captain. Then later on, I will play the entire song. Thought, this is the best way for you to understand the song, is to be able to hear the captain's voice and not covered up by any of the music.
Dachau blues, those poor Jews. Dachau blues, those poor Jews. Dachau blues, those poor Jews. Still crying about the burning back in World War II. One mad man, 6 million lose. Down in Dachau blues, down in Dachau blues. Well, can't forget that misery, and the young ones now begging the old ones, please stop being madmen, for they have to tell their children about the burnings back in World War III.
So this particular track, which was created by Ant-Man B, and I will put a link in the description so you can hear the other tracks, because he broke out each individual instrument. But this vocal track, because there are long stretches of instrumental, it has extended periods of silence, so I'm going to edit those out. You may have noticed the track is not perfect. A little bit of the bass clarinet have bled into the vocal. I guess there was difficulty separating the captain's very low voice with the low sounds of the clarinet. And then some of the phrases are clipped or distorted a little bit. Partly that's my fault because of the program I used to put the captions in. But also, at some points, the captain's voice actually drops below the recording capability of the instruments they were using at the time. I don't know anyone that sings any lower than some of the notes he's hitting right here.
Wall one with balls and powder and blood and snow. Wall two, rain, death and showers and skeletons dancing and screaming and dying in the ovens, coughing smoke and dying by the dozens down. Dachau Blues, down at Dachau Blues. Sweet little children with doves on their shoulders, their eyes roll back in ecstasy, crying, please, old man, stop this misery. Counting out the devil with two fingers on their hands, begging the Lord, don't let the third one land on World War III. On World War III.
So that was the lyric, and as you can see, it's very graphic about the nature of the violence, Jews being put to death in the showers and causing smoke and dying by the dozens. Horrible, horrible example of man's inhumanity to man. And are we headed back down that same road? It seems like, I will say right now, what the college presidents seemed unable to say the other day in Congress. Yes, it is wrong to speak of extermination of any people and encourage extermination of any people. If college students had a rally and said, let's kill all the black people, or let's kill all the gay people, or let's kill all the Muslims, you can be sure that the college would act very quickly and those people would have been expelled immediately. But apparently in today's world, you can say, let's kill all the Jews, and somehow that's not a problem. We have to consider the context of what they said. Well, the context is there's open harassment occurring of Jewish students, Jewish faculty, to the point where they're afraid to go to classes, they're afraid to teach classes, there's open demonstrations. Some people have been violently attacked because they're Jewish, others have actually been killed in this country because they're Jewish. We're on a very slippery slope here. And when the captain recorded this song over 50 years ago, I was probably thinking that could never happen again. I think a lot of us thought we would never see a time like this in our country. But we're here and we need to deal with it. Enough of the lecture. Now, to really appreciate the song, we've got to put the music in the background. For that, I'm also going to use a version that Ant-Man B created, where he was able to clean up some of the audio and give us the best possible version of this song.
Dachau Blues, those poor Jews. Dachau Blues, those poor Jews. Dachau Blues, Dachau Blues, those poor Jews. Still crying about the burning back in World War II. One bad man, 6 million Jews. Down in Dachau Blues, down in Dachau Blues. The world can't forget that misery, and the young ones now begging the old ones, please, to stop being madmen, for they have to tell their children about the burnings back in World War III.
As I explained in my previous Trout Mask reaction to Frownland, to a lot of people, that instrumental music just sounds like unorganized sound. Those of us who have studied the captain for 50 years understand that every single note there is planned. They may be playing different keys, different times. It may sound totally disjointed, but that's on purpose. Some people will never really be able to appreciate that, but I recommend that you listen to a Beefheart song, especially a Trout Mask Replica song, at least a dozen times before you make a judgment. It may grow on you. It's just a poignant lyric here, the whole thing about the young ones begging the old ones, please, don't let this happen, or else we'll be talking about what happened back in World War III. Well, doesn't World War III seem closer right now than it ever has in my lifetime, or at least since the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, I believe? The world seems out of control and lurching towards bad outcome. And we pray it is not World War III, and we pray it is not another Holocaust of the Jewish people or any other people. Let's listen to a little more of the soothing sounds of Captain Beefheart's instrumental.
War with balls and counting blood and snow. War to rain, death and showers and skeletons dancing and screaming. It died in the ovens, carving smoke and dying by the dozens down in Dachau. Three little children with doves on their shoulders, their eyes roll back in ecstasy, crying, please, old man, stop this misery. They're counting out the devil with two fingers on their hands, begging the Lord, don't let the third one land on World War III. On World War III.
And there's that bass clarinet, which, by the way, is not being played by the captain. He does play some horns elsewhere on the album, but that was another fella. It's interesting that I believe this is the first time anyone has tried to react to this song. I don't see anyone else. A few people have reacted to the entire album, but when they get to this song, they don't know what to say. Probably for obvious reasons. It's a very dark subject that people would rather not think about. 6 million people killed. And it wasn't just Jews, as we know. It was Jews, it was homosexuals. It was probably anybody who didn't go along with the Nazi narrative could end up killed in some manner. Let's hope we're not headed back to that type of a world. Let's hope we've learned something. And please teach your young people that this was not made up. This was real. It did happen. And there's plenty of evidence. One thing that President Eisenhower did when he was still General Eisenhower at the end of the Second World War is he called the press to come in and document places like Dachau and other concentration camps and what was being done there, because he suspected that in time people would try to deny what happened. So the evidence is all there. It was all documented. It's real. And let's make sure it doesn't happen again.